we're going to dig up a few root vegetables today from our container plants and maybe have some soup again, do something with them. But that's what we're going to do today, to see how the root vegetables in our container plants are doing. Okay guys, let's get these dug up.
Everything is dead.
Yeah, everything is dead now. All the plants have died. Come on. Here, look.
Why are we looking for potatoes here?
These are the Chinese artichokes.
Yeah, but why are we looking for them when every single artichoke is dead?
Because these aren't dead. They're root vegetables. Look. Did you see a little white thing underneath?
What?
Oh.
An artichoke. It's an artichoke.
Yay, you found one.
I found two.
Yeah, they're really tiny though.
Yeah.
I don't think they do as well in these smaller containers.
Doesn't
We're gonna have to use.
It's an artichoke. Wait,
No.
so then you need to pull these little lines off and do this?
Yeah, they do better in the much larger containers, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see one.
I think that these are better off growing in the ground or in the larger 10-gallon containers.
Artichokes.
I don't-
You found another one.
I think they end up
This one's dead.
a little too
Look.
cramped when they're inside.
Look, I
Here.
found one.
Okay, put it in.
Look, but look.
Bum, bum, bum,
Bum, bum, bum. Put it over there. So I think we're gonna save these containers and we're gonna just replant from a lot of these because they're so small.
Yeah.
And next
Maybe it
year,
was just a problem with this plant. Maybe in the other plants it will be bigger.
I think I see one. I think I see one.
yeah, but I think the problem is that the plants are these containers are just too small. It needs a larger container. It needs like a 10-gallon
Yeah.
container. So the next thing we're going to try to take is some of the Jerusalem artichokes. We'll see what those did. Oh,
Cutworm.
I think that was a slug. Hold on.
No, it's right there. I can see it.
Where?
Oh, you just missed it.
I think I did. I think you're right.
I see it. I see it. I see it.
Where?
It's right there.
Grab it, because I can't. We'll have to see if the ducks want that. Okay, good job. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna try some Jerusalem artichokes and see what we think about those. This is
Those
our first
things
time growing Jerusalem artichokes. Do really well in a 5-gallon container. You see this?
One
and
is cool.
there's a bunch underneath here at the bottom, so I think we'll continue to grow these in the 5-gallon. We're not going to take too much today because we just want to try a lot of these out and see how they're doing in the containers. Today we're just exploring to see how things do so we know how to grow them in future. So right now we know that the Jerusalem artichokes do really well inside of a 5-gallon container, but that the Chinese artichokes need to be in at least a 10-gallon container. This here is the Skirret, and this is a 15-gallon, I think this is 15-gallon container. And we're gonna see how the Skirret does in here, or how it did in here. So this is the Skirret that is in our container. And let's say medium-sized roots. This is a 2-year-old Skirret plant. So they didn't grow long at all being in the container. Even as 2-year-old plants, they're not very, very thick. A lot of thin ones, but it's a nice sized wedge of plants, a nice amount of them. A lot of smaller ones, which I'm guessing is because this is the 2nd year in here. So we're gonna pull a few off and then put this back in the ground. All right, so we're gonna stick this back in the ground so that we can continue to pull from this later in the year or throughout the rest of this fall. And we'll be able to get some more of the roots growing in the spring. So let's get that back in here, get it covered up. So this is a 15-gallon bag with Chinese artichoke in it. And I pulled this size out of the 15-gallon bag. So I'd say at least 10 to 15 gallons. Let's see what else we pull out of here. Yeah, I'm gonna say we want 15 gallons, 10 to 15 gallons at least on the Chinese artichoke in order to get the larger sizes. So skinny skirret, but the Jerusalem artichoke do really well in a smaller bin. The only other thing to test out would be to compare the skirret to the skirret that's in the ground, because I don't have any skirret that is growing in large sized bins at this time for me to compare it to. This is the skirret that's growing in the ground. Oh, looks like there were a couple of rocks in there. And here's another piece. It's not that big. Maybe skirret is just always going to be sort of thin, the ones we're growing here. So maybe it doesn't matter if it's in the ground or not. But dig a little more. I did see another root there. Yeah, still skinny. So that is a smaller plant though, so this is a larger skirret plant, so we'll see what we get from this one here. Still very skinny skirret when grown in the ground. So the last thing we're going to pull out of the ground is the Salsify and Scorzonera. We've had Salsify and Scorzonera before. We've grown the Salsify and Scorzonera for about 3 years now. We plant every year new Salsify and Scorzonera, but I think this year we might let some of it go to seed so that we don't have to continue buying seed every year for these. It's so cold. You can see the roots all the way down here for this one. So we're gonna let that come apart. Oh, look, that's a little tiny one. We'll throw that back in. But there we go. This one actually is, I think, Scorzonera. This is Salsify, and this is Scorzonera. And some people say that they taste like oysters or like artichokes. I think that they're pretty bland tasting, but they do add a vegetable to put into your winter soups or just to fry up as a side. They tend to take the flavor, I think, of whatever else has been cooked with them. So this is what we've harvested for today. We've got Salsify and Scorzonera, we've got Jerusalem artichokes, Chinese artichokes, and some skirret. I think it's best to grow the Chinese artichokes in a larger container, at least 10 gallons, or just grow them in the ground because the sizes are larger. In the 5-gallon container, they were really tiny, so that's what I would go with. The skirret didn't seem to matter whether it was in a large container or in the ground. They were all pretty skinny, but the length of them was a lot longer if they were grown in the ground. So I'd say grow in the ground so that you get more of the vegetable because you get the length even if you don't get the width. Scorzonera and Salsify, you have to grow those in the ground because they get very long. Some of our roots, you can see how long these are. And Jerusalem artichokes or sunchokes, I think whether you grow them in the ground or in a container, I think that they seem to do pretty good because we have a lot in that container still. We have a couple of other containers I checked also, and they're really doing well. And So I'd say you could probably go with a 5-gallon container and still get a really good harvest from the Sunchokes or Jerusalem artichokes. Chinese artichokes or cronies, you're going to need a 10-gallon or larger container because they don't seem to grow really well in anything smaller than that. Our 5-gallon container had very few, mostly roots, very few actual little tubers and a lot of roots, and the tubers that were there were really tiny. So I'd say at least a 10-gallon, preferably larger container, or to grow directly into the ground.